The gleaming marble lobby of the Grand Azure Resort echoed with my family's laughter as I pushed their designer luggage toward the elevator. My sister Amanda's voice carried across the space, deliberately loud enough for other guests to hear. Can you believe it? 10 years of finding himself, and he's still carrying bags for a living. My brother-in-law Charles, fresh from his morning tennis match, chimed in. At least he's got job security. Someone's always going to need their bags carried. If only they knew that while they were busy mocking my career choices, I'd built Eclipse Hospitality into a silent giant in the luxury hotel industry. The Grand Azure, their favorite resort for showing off their supposed success, was just the latest addition to my portfolio. Which floor, sir? I asked politely, playing my role as the dutiful bellhop. Charles barely glanced at me as he adjusted his Rolex. A knockoff, though he'd never admit it. Presidential suite, of course, Amanda replied, examining her fresh manicure. Though I suppose you've never seen inside those rooms, have you, little brother? I suppressed a smile, thinking about the ownership papers sitting in my office, my real office, not the staff room they assumed I used. I'd signed the final acquisition documents for the Grand Azure just yesterday, adding it to Eclipse's growing collection of luxury properties. My phone buzzed silently in my pocket. A message from Sarah, my chief operations officer. Board meeting confirmed for 9 a.m. tomorrow. New ownership announcement ready for distribution. I'd deliberately scheduled the announcement for an hour after my family's planned checkout time. But given their behavior, perhaps an earlier revelation might be in order. Beautiful hotel, isn't it? I commented casually as we rode up in the elevator. The architecture, the attention to detail. Please, Amanda scoffed, spare us your service industry expertise. Some of us have actual business careers to discuss. Charles nodded importantly. Speaking of which, we're meeting potential investors for breakfast tomorrow. Try not to embarrass us in front of the real guests. Real guests. If they only knew that half the investors they tried to impress were actually my employees, carefully placed to monitor the hotel's operations. The elevator opened directly into the presidential suite, a $12,000 per night testament to luxury that they were only experiencing because I'd quietly arranged a special rate through their travel agent. Will there be anything else? I asked, setting down their bags. Amanda waved her hand dismissively. That's all. Though. She paused, reaching for her purse. Here's a little something for your trouble. Maybe put it toward some career counseling. She held out a $20 bill, her diamond bracelet catching the light. The same bracelet she'd bragged about at our last family dinner, not knowing I owned the company that had actually repossessed it from its previous owner. Very kind of you, I replied, taking the bill. I'd have it framed later. A reminder of what they thought $20 meant to the man who signed their hotel's payroll. As I turned to leave, Charles called out. Oh, and we'll need extra towels. Try to remember this time. Last stay the service was disappointing. I nodded, thinking about the real reason their last stay had been less than perfect. Amazing how room service gets delayed when guests treat staff like furniture. Of course, sir. I'll make sure everything is perfect for your stay. My phone buzzed again as I left the suite. Another message from Sarah. Final paperwork processed. You're officially the owner of record. Should we move up the announcement? I watched through the closing elevator doors as Amanda and Charles began their usual routine of photographing themselves in the luxury suite, carefully curating their social media image of success. No, I typed back. Let them enjoy their last night of pretending they belong here. Tomorrow they'll learn what real success looks like. Back in the lobby, I nodded to Thomas, the actual bellhop, who'd played along with my periodic appearances as a staff member. The entire hotel team knew who I really was, and why I sometimes chose to observe operations from ground level. How's the family, sir? He asked quietly as I passed. Still experts in hospitality management, I replied with a wink. Though tomorrow might change their perspective. I headed toward my private elevator, the one that led to the owner's penthouse office. Time to prepare for tomorrow's revelation. Sometimes success isn't about carrying bags. It's about owning the hotel. From my penthouse office, I watched the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold, a view my family thought was reserved for real business people like themselves. The irony wasn't lost on me as I reviewed the security feeds showing Amanda and Charles holding court in the hotel's five-star restaurant, regaling their dinner companions with tales of their imagined business prowess. And then I told the board, Charles was saying, gesturing with his third glass of premium wine, that their strategy was completely wrong. They practically begged me to consult for them after that. Sarah appeared silently at my side, tablet in hand. Sir, your family has just charged another $2,000 bottle of Chateau Lafite to their room. Should we? Let them enjoy it, I smiled. Consider it a farewell gift to their delusions of grandeur. The feed switched to show Amanda showing off her exclusive suite to some newly arrived guests. Of course, we always stay in the presidential suite. Charles and I have certain standards, you understand. Standards that had been maintained by my careful manipulation of their booking rates, ensuring they could afford to keep up appearances. Till now. The announcement package is ready, Sarah reported. Press release, ownership transfer documents, new management structure. Including the revised rate cards for certain guests. I nodded, thinking about the preferred client status my family had enjoyed without knowing its source. Schedule everything for 8 a.m. I want them to have time to fully process their new reality before checkout. My phone lit up with a message from the restaurant manager. Mr. Rivers, your sister is demanding to speak with the owner about the wine list. Says it's beneath her usual standards. Tell her the owner will be happy to discuss it tomorrow morning, I replied, enjoying the layers of truth in that statement. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You're going to meet them as yourself? Not the usual representative. Time to end the charade, I confirmed. 10 years of watching them mistake wealth for worth is enough. The security feed showed Amanda and Charles heading back to their suite, slightly unsteady from the wine they couldn't actually afford. They passed a housekeeping cart without even a glance at the staff who knew more about real business operations than my family ever would. Prepare the main conference room for 8 a.m., I instructed Sarah. Full documentation of their past stays, charges, and especially their treatment of our employees. Let's make this educational. Yes, sir, she smiled. Should I include the compilation of their social media posts about the hotel? The ones where they claim to know the owner personally. Perfect. It's time they met the owner they've been name-dropping. I turned back to the window, watching the lights of other Eclipse hospitality properties twinkling along the coastline. Properties I'd acquired while my family thought I was wasting time in the service industry. Another message buzzed through, this time from Amanda. Housekeeping was slow again. Make sure you do better with our towels tomorrow, little brother. Some of us have important meetings. I archived it without responding, instead pulling up the guest list for their supposed investor breakfast. As expected, none of the names were actual investors, just more social climbers trying to impress each other with borrowed luxury. Sarah, I called. Move my 8 a.m. reveal to the restaurant. Let's make it a proper breakfast meeting. He nodded, already typing. Their usual table? No, I smiled. The owner's private dining room. Let's show them where real business happens. The night unfolded with predictable patterns. Amanda posted countless photos of their luxury suite. Charles made loud phone calls in the lobby about imaginary business deals. Both continued to treat the staff with the casual disdain of people who thought money equaled class. Around midnight, I watched them return from the hotel bar, Charles loudly proclaiming his expertise in hotel management to anyone within earshot. The problem with places like this, he was saying, swaying slightly, is they don't understand real luxury. If I owned this place, what would you do? I murmured to the empty office. Fail to pay the bills like your last 3 business ventures. Sarah appeared with a final update. Everything is set for tomorrow. The staff has been briefed, security is prepared, and the ownership announcement has been scheduled for distribution to all major news outlets. Perfect, I replied, closing my laptop. Time to prepare for my first official day as the visible owner of the Grand Azure. As I rode the private elevator to my actual residence, the hidden owner's suite above the presidential floor, I thought about all the family dinners where they'd mocked my career choices. All the condescending advice about real business. All the times they'd looked down on the very industry that had made me wealthy enough to buy their favorite playground. Sarah, I called as the elevator doors opened. Make sure their final bill includes every charge at full rate. No more family discounts. Already done, sir, she replied. Should I include the historical rate adjustments they never knew about? Of course, I smiled. It's time for a complete accounting. Tomorrow would be interesting indeed. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just owning the hotel. It's watching them realize who they've been bragging to all along. At precisely 7:55 a.m., I stood in the owner's private dining room, watching through one-way glass as Amanda and Charles arrived for their investor breakfast. They'd dressed for performance, her in Chanel, him in what he claimed was bespoke Armani but was actually a decent knockoff. Your sister has already demanded 3 room service changes this morning, Sarah reported, standing beside me with her ever-present tablet. And Mr. Charles attempted to book a private yacht using an expired credit card. How fitting, I smiled, adjusting my genuine Brioni suit, the kind of subtle luxury my family could never quite achieve. Are our other guests ready? She nodded toward the security feed showing the hotel's senior staff gathering in the adjacent room. Everyone who's been personally affected by their behavior is present. Excellent. Let's begin their education. I watched through the glass as Amanda and Charles settled at their table, already performing for an audience that didn't exist. The investors they expected would never arrive. Instead, they'd face a different kind of meeting. I told the owner last time, Amanda was saying loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, that they really should upgrade their breakfast menu. I mean, beluga caviar is so basic. Charles nodded importantly. Speaking of which, where is everyone? I specifically arranged this meeting to discuss potential investment opportunities. Right on cue, Sarah entered their room. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison? The owner will see you now. Their expressions shifted from annoyance to excitement. After all, they'd been bragging about knowing the owner personally. This was their chance to prove it. Finally, Amanda preened, gathering her designer bag. Charles, darling, remember to mention your ideas about property development. I turned to face the door as Sarah led them into the private dining room. The moment they saw me, their faces went through a fascinating series of emotions. Confusion, disbelief, and slowly dawning horror. Good morning, I said pleasantly. I believe you wanted to discuss the wine list? Amanda's perfectly arranged smile cracked. Michael? What are you doing here? Hosting a breakfast meeting, I replied, gesturing to the table where the hotel's senior staff was now filing in. I believe you know everyone here? Though usually from the other side of a demanding phone call. Charles attempted to recover first. Now see here, if this is some kind of joke. No joke, I interrupted, nodding to Sarah, who began distributing folders to everyone present. Consider this a performance review. Yours. The folders contained detailed records of their stays. Every complaint, every demand, every instance of staff mistreatment meticulously documented. Along with their carefully hidden payment histories. All those discounts they'd never known came from my intervention. This is ridiculous, Amanda sputtered, her manicured hands trembling as she flipped through the pages. You can't, you're a bellhop. Actually, Sarah interjected smoothly, Mr. Rivers is the founder and CEO of Eclipse Hospitality. Owner of this and 12 other luxury properties along the coast. The bellhop position was just one of his ways of monitoring hotel operations. Charles collapsed into a chair, his face ashen. 12 properties? But that would mean that your brother-in-law is worth considerably more than everyone you've been trying to impress? I finished for him. Amazing what one can achieve in the service industry, isn't it? The senior staff sat quietly, years of forced smiles replaced by expressions of satisfied vindication. Many had endured my family's behavior specifically because I'd asked them to, part of my long-term plan to document exactly who my sister and brother-in-law really were. Now, I continued, taking my seat at the head of the table, let's discuss your standing with the Grand Azure. Starting with your actual bill. Sarah distributed new documents, itemized statements showing their true charges without my hidden subsidies. Amanda's face went pale as she saw the numbers. This is impossible, she whispered. Our usual rate was heavily discounted by an owner you never knew existed, I completed. Those days are over. Along with your preferred guest status at all Eclipse properties. Charles fumbled for his phone, probably trying to check his accounts. But our membership. Revoked, I stated flatly. Along with all associated privileges. Though you're welcome to reapply at standard rates. Assuming you can afford them. The staff began sharing their own documented experiences, the midnight demands, the baseless complaints, the constant threats to speak to the owner. With each story, Amanda and Charles seemed to shrink further into their chairs. And these social media posts, Sarah continued, pulling up a large screen showing their many boasts about the hotel. Particularly interesting is your claimed friendship with the owner. Care to elaborate on that relationship? Amanda's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide her reddening face. Michael, please, we're family. Family. I raised an eyebrow. Like when you tipped your bellhop brother $20 for career advice. Or when you mocked the staff who've helped build this company into what it is. I stood, buttoning my jacket with the casual ease of someone who didn't need to prove their success. Your checkout time has been moved to 10 a.m. A car will take you to the airport, where you'll find your first-class tickets have been downgraded to economy. You can't do this, Charles protested weakly. We have rights as guests. Had rights, I corrected him. Past tense. Along with your access to any Eclipse property worldwide. Though I hear there's a lovely budget hotel near the airport. The staff began to rise, each nodding respectfully to me, their actual boss, not the pretender who'd tried to claim friendship with an owner he'd never met. One last thing, I added as Amanda and Charles struggled to comprehend their new reality. Those investors you were meeting? They don't exist. Much like your supposed business expertise. Sarah appeared with one final document, a bill for the full cost of all their past stays, adjusted to remove my secret discounts. The total made Charles's knockoff Rolex hand shake visibly. Consider it a lesson in real hospitality management, I suggested. Something to think about while you're flying economy. As security arrived to escort them back to their room, no longer the presidential suite they'd bragged about, Amanda made one last attempt. Mom will never forgive you for this, she threatened weakly. I smiled, thinking of our mother's recent discovery that her favorite spa resort was also an Eclipse property. Actually, she's already expressed her support. Amazing how perspective changes when you learn who really owns the luxury you've been borrowing. The rest of the day brought predictable drama. Tearful calls from family members, threats of social embarrassment, promises of redemption. I archived them all, focusing instead on the thank you notes from staff who'd finally seen justice served.